All right, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is another episode of the HBYOB BrewCast. I am your host tonight. I'm taking over. We're taking over. 32-Bit is taking over. Chris Allen with 32-Bit, along with the owner of HBYOB, Joey Brumley, and also we've got Mark Pricer on the line with us. Mark, how you doing? I mean, it looks like from at least your background or whatever, you are enjoying the summer as of right now.
I'm sitting outside. But I do have a quick question. This just came to mind. What do you? I've never had these before. If you had a choice, slim can or standard size can, do you have a preference? I want to know the truth.
I'd probably say the slim can, but I don't know why. I just like my knee-jerk reaction would be to take the slim can.
Joey, do you have a preference? I'm convinced the slim can doesn't have as much beer in it. It seems to go down a lot quicker.
I have absolutely no opinion in this matter.
I'm just saying the slim can. I never bought a Heineken Slim before. They had them for the first time. I thought, well, I'm gonna try those. I swear to God, one sip and they're almost gone. So
I did. I forgot. I didn't even grab the beer that I usually grab before the cast, since today's podcast topic was Mark's idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I had to go get. I usually go get. I call when it comes to brewing, inspiration beer. So while Chris kind of gets the ball rolling, today's topic is brewing on a budget. You know, everything that's going on in the world, gas prices, everything. Mark's idea was, people are trying to save a few dollars these days, and I understand. So Chris, if you kind of want to get the topic started, maybe kind of like, did you even like? I do know me and Mark got started into homebrewing because of we thought we could save a few bucks.
Yeah, we thought we could make better beer cheaper. That was the whole point.
Now that I'm a store owner, I feel, or not because I'm a store owner, I'm completely the opposite now. To me, it's like if you're going to invest your time into brewing a batch of beer, you shouldn't necessarily worry about price. I mean, as far as the shop that you choose, making sure that their prices are fair is important.
Sure.
But as far as like your actual beer, unfortunately, and we'll get into that. I know I'm not giving Chris his turn because I have a beer I'm excited about. I've never had before, or if so, it's been a long time. But now for me, I'm one of those, if you're going to invest 4 hours into a brew day, don't worry. In my opinions don't worry about saving $1 or $2 on, don't skimp on ingredients to brew good beer. Yeah. If you want to brew a hazy, especially hazy styles, or like an imperial stout, to save $1 or $2, brewing on a budget may not be what's going to be. But if you want to make like right now that it's summer out, if you want to make a lawnmower beer, absolutely. Chris, once you get it started, I'm going to go grab the beer I'm excited about.
Well, Mark, I'll take it to you first, because if I'm thinking about, even before we even get into the brewing portion, I would almost think that the style of beer that you would want to brew is like essentially where you would start. That's where you could try and you can think about brewing on a budget. Because if I wanted to brew something like what Joey was talking about a second ago about lawnmower type beer, I would try and recreate like those types of things that I want to drink over the summertime, which would be, let's say, on the cheaper side. I'm not going to go all out and try and get like, the coffee vanilla flavored imperial stout, like with all these, bells and whistles attached to it. So what about you? I mean, would you think that trying to just do, let's say, like a Heineken or something like that, something simple would be how folks would start off?
I mean, my first process is this can go two different ways. Cost of the brewing equipment and all that, or just literally how much for a 12-ounce beer. What?
I truly went to the gas. I went to not the gas station. There's drive-through. I get like pops and things. So I'll go thirsty at work. And I truly asked the lady working there this morning. I said, "Give me the cheapest beer you got."
Oh my God!
And she supplied me with this.
Daddy, that's it. Right.
It stinks. Oh my gosh, this stinks.
Now, when you say stink,
I'm getting sick. I'm not even like I don't even like to be this guy. I'm getting sick to my stomach smelling this.
Yeah, I'm not a natty drinker anyway. But
like it is got an eggy, sulfur.
I don't know what that is. Like
I've got a rotten gut, but I'm not sure this is going to get finished. So yes, $1.25 gets you 25 ounces of a premium lager. So I guess the reason why, thank you, Frank. I'm gonna have to show everybody that I should have probably kept it in the can because I think this is a beer that does not deserve a glass.
It does not. It does not.
Like I said, that's our basis. Is
Well,
for what's half of $1.25.
Like I was telling Chris,
Thereabouts.
but again, where this started is I noticed two times in the last few months I've been in places where I've been in places where they have craft beer, and 2 times in the last 30 days I've heard people specifically go, I bought this 2 weeks ago. It was $12.99 a 6-pack. It's now $16.99 for the same 6-pack.
Yeah.
My Heineken, which is my, I have some craft beer in the refrigerator, but I'm a Heineken drinker. I used to get 18 for about $20, and now it's like $25, for an 18-pack. So the cost of just buying beer has gone up. So obviously that made me, in my head, go back again. When me and Joey first started, I brewed the Mr. Beer kits before me and Joey kind of got involved. But then when me and Joey got involved in it, again, it was how cheap could we make 12 ounces of beer? We skimped on the equipment and obviously the method and all that. I still never threw any of it away. I still drank 5 gallons more than, multiple times. So just real quick, I know we want to go a different route, but quickly, Joey, just if someone walks into your store, and in my head, I know it's going to be a bucket system. What's the cheapest way that someone can literally get into right now if they wanted to make 5 gallons of beer, if we're talking equipment?
Well, I mean, obviously just our basic brewing equipment kit. You would want to use, like a plastic bucket style fermenter, which I actually had this conversation with someone earlier today, is going to brew just as good a beer. That's your first beer as your conical style fermenter or anything in between. So I guess to answer your question, for your first batch of beer, the cheapest equipment we have, I doubt you're going to notice a flavor difference from it versus, our most expensive equipment. The difference is going to be longevity. When you're a big part of when you're investing in brewing equipment is you're buying longevity. So, if you're buying a stainless steel, whether it's a brew pot or a fermenter or a wort chiller, you can make one out of copper, or you could have an aluminum brew pot. Those are cheaper options, but longevity for stainless is going to be much greater. So getting started, I don't even like calling them beginner kits. I like calling them essential kits. Just getting your bare bones essential equipment to get brewing beer good is going to be your most economical way to equipment wise. As far as ingredients go, the best way to go about it's going to be buying things in bulk. Unfortunately it would be jumping past extract brewing, digging into all grain brewing. Sure. Now you're going to invest your time. But if you love the hobby of brewing like I do, I've never really factored my time into cost. So brewing all grain brewing, I mean, if you, like, for example, if you buy a 50-pound bag of 2-row, you're looking at, say $54.99 for a 55-pound bag. You're looking at $1 a pound for grain. That's pretty affordable. Cheap. Now you're going to need a grain mill. Once again, you're going to have to invest into a grain mill, or you can pay our price for the convenience of just getting the essential amount that you need. We'll crush it for you. But because of all of, the small amounts, your cost per glass is going to go up because, I mean, when we have to weigh it out, we have to crush it for you. You do pay more money for the expense of that.
Yeah. And the convenience.
No, we say, the grain crushing is for free, and it is but it's still more affordable if you bought it by the 55-pound bag or 50-pound bag.
You won't crush 55 pounds?
I mean, we do charge it, like, at that point, if you bought a 55-pound bag, generally speaking, I tell people, let me order it for you because we'll actually have the maltster crush it for you. If you're on a whim, we do charge a $5 crushing fee if you want us to crush the whole bag for you.
How long does 55 gallons or 55 pounds last? Meaning, if I buy it, well, okay, but I'm just, if you store it in a cool, dry place, or if I throw it in the freezer or refrigerator.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, the 55-pound bag will, honestly, like I tell people, we use like pet. They're actually, I mean, technically they're called Vittle vaults or pet storage food containers. They're food grade.
Right.
It keeps, fruit flies. I'm sure probably, mice and things like that would love to get to it. So being that we're in a plaza with a bunch of other, businesses, we do keep everything stored in airtight containers. I invested, like I said, I bought those for all of our grains. I think I honestly don't remember if I had to throw a number out. I think at the time they were like $30 a container. But if you throw them in something airtight, or say some people just use like Tupperware bins, whatever you have, a couple years I think would be a fair enough assessment. They do store pretty well. I thought you were asking how many, your average grain bill is probably going to ask anywhere from 6 to 12 pounds, I would say, is kind of the average range of your base grain.
So you're going to get roughly 4 brews out of a 55-pound bag?
A few more, but
possibly more. But I tell people what I recommend for people to do is, if you do invest into a grain mill, get your base grain that you prefer, 1 or 2, like say either a 2-row or a pale ale malt, possibly a Maris Otter, or a Pilsen malt that's actually been really popular this time of year because of lawnmower style beers. But get those, and then just get your specialty grains from us, because you're really, to buy even a 10-pound bag of, say, Caramel 20 is like a lifetime supply for your average home brewer. So those still come get from us. Let us weigh them out. If you need them crushed, that's not a problem. But like your base grain, almost all recipes are going to basically call for pale ale, 2-row, Pilsen, or Maris Otter. I mean, those four base grains are in virtually everything.
Right.
So like I said, pick your favorite base grain. That would be a great way to save money.
Right. It's buy it in bulk. But you can't, like I said, the very first batch I did of 5-gallon before I got out of the Mr. Beer kit thing, and you were part of it. I stole 2 of the 5-gallon water jugs from work, that you get at the water cooler. There was always some empties sitting there. Well, I stole those. I mean, I brewed using 2 of those.
Steal them. There was a deposit on them.
Well, I know, but I eventually cleaned them out and gave them back. So we got the deposit. I didn't pay anything, for those. And I bought the, you had to buy the bigger bung. Is that what they're called? The bung, the rubber thing obviously was a bigger size and all that. But I did see, buying all grain versus the brew kits. When I look on your website, the brew kits start anywhere from $12, $13 and go way up. I'm assuming the lower end ones are going to be more of your lawnmower beer, right?
Yeah, so that's actually what me and Chris were looking up while we were discussing I was bashing the beer that I'm drinking right now. It does smell putrid, but drinking it, I mean, I just showed Chris.
You have drank that before in your life. I've known you a long time.
I'm pretty sure I more than likely have. Curiosity always kills the cat with me. But 8%, technically for $1.25, I do have like 4 beers in a can.
That's
true. 4 beers in a can.
Yeah.
That's pretty cheap. But our cream ale kit comes right out to $18.99. So for $18.99, even with, so say you don't have the grain mill, so you don't want to store your own grain, for $20, for under $20, you are brewing 5 gallons of beer. I mean, that's about as cost effective as it can
5
get.
gallons of 5. Okay, we've said 5 gallons a few times just to make sure everybody knows. 5 gallons gets you roughly how many 12-ounce beers?
I like to tell people 50.
All right.
Because it's technically like 52 or 53, but by the time you lose to trub and all the stuff at the bottom and crozin and spillage and all that, so we took that and divide that by the 50 beers, you're looking at 36 cents a beer.
Yeah, that's why I said I was rounding up to about 40 cents.
Now it's not going to be 8% like what we're drinking right now.
No,
like 4%, but
yeah.
Like that.
But still, even Budweiser and Bud Light right now has gone up in price. It's even Budweiser now is close to $1 a beer. And you used to be able to buy, a 24-pack of Budweiser for $15. And even it's gotten up near $20. So it's about 80 some cents a beer. So at the kit you just described, if you did it, how do I want to say this? I guess if you did it, in my opinion, that kit should be a better quality beer even than what a Budweiser is, though, right?
Well, that was kind of what I was getting to. Taste is subjective.
I got that.
You know, it's back to, I'm sure I've known plenty of people that even the beer I'm most proud about could absolutely not stand. So like I said, they would actually probably rather take your Natty Daddy or Milwaukee's Best Ice over the stuff that I brew.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you're a craft beer drinker, I think most craft beer drinkers would say a good cream ale, you know, a good cream ale home brewed or even from your local brewery is going to be better in the flavor department than, you know, an adjunct lager, because you are making an adjunct lager style beer, but 100% from malt. You know, that's a big thing that we have to factor. Is I think part of the reason why this beer smells to me is this isn't 100% from barley. There's no way this beer is 100% from barley, which isn't, we've discussed, you know, price on, you know, back in the good old days. That's not why we started throwing adjuncts into beers, to my best knowledge. But from that, like I said, I do believe, you know, if you're brewing on a budget, like I said, we kind of started the topic because of, you know, just kind of the way the world is these days, and, you know, money's getting tight with everything going on. I don't think because of cost would be a reason to discourage you from home brewing. You know,
but I think I brought this up because to me it should encourage you to homebrew. Meaning, let's go back to Sierra Nevada. That's one we always talk about. That's similar to the recipe we created a few shows back. I'm sure that you could get somebody into making a Sierra Nevada knockoff type beer, and it'd be a lot cheaper than going in and buying Sierra Nevada right now.
I was gonna say we have
that recipe. I think if we priced out that recipe that we put together, that was essentially a Sierra Nevada clone, maybe chop off a few hops, you know, a couple ounces of hops here and there, you could probably get fairly close to it while paying, let's say, between, I don't know, Joey, I would guess around, let's say, $20 to $25.
Well, I mean,
that still keeps you at 45, 50 cents a beer. Where Sierra Nevada right now is like $8.99, you know, 10 something a 6-pack.
I guess, you know, before instead of just throwing a bunch of constant money numbers out, I guess the best way, if you're wanting to brew on a budget, and this is where it gets a little bit difficult, is if you already own the home brewing equipment, that's one way we can have the conversation. Like, say you already own your equipment.
Right.
Because
now it's just what's the cheapest recipe.
Right.
And
another way to look at it is getting into the hobby. If you want to get into the hobby, you know, what's a cheap route to get into the hobby? And like I said, the conversation really goes two different ways, because I think every home brewer knows, if you don't factor the cost of equipment, all grain brewing, like I said earlier, if you don't if you don't put a price on your time to brew it because you enjoy the hobby, all grain brewing is going to save you money over extract brewing. It just does.
Yes.
So we already know that. So if you're wanting to brew on a budget, say you already own basically the equipment, my first advice would just be brew all grain versus extract. That would be the very first recommendation I would make. Get into all grain brewing. And especially nowadays, there are so many ways to cost effectively get into all grain brewing. I mean, you could do brew in a bag and possibly not need any equipment difference from if you were an extract brewer.
That's right.
I mean, another thing would be even if you have we're not talking time right now. If you have a 5-gallon stock pot that you got with our extract kit, you could do a 2-gallon all grain batch.
Right.
So you wouldn't have to, you know, you could do brew in a bag, and you could do brew in a bag style. You would need
explain brew in a bag for people who haven't. We've used that term a few times. Brew in a bag. I mean, it's kind of, to me, it's like brewing iced tea a little bit.
Well, it's essentially is that, because it's essentially everything that you need just all in one shot. I mean, you're putting all of your ingredients. I mean, not all of your, not the yeast, obviously, but really like your grains and whatever else. I mean, that you would need, like, it's all in one shot that allows you to pretty much circumvent, at least, let's say, probably like 2 to 3 hours, I would say, thereabouts. So at least a couple of hours of work if you were to follow just the typical process of going through doing your mash, your sparge, like so on and so forth. So while I would say overall quality, I think that might be a fun experiment, do the Pepsi challenge between a brew in a bag versus somebody that went the full route of doing an all grain brew and like comparing the two. But like we're talking about right now, for the cost that goes into it, I'm fine with like sacrificing at least that edge, or at least like that quality edge, in order to maybe brew something that can get me 75 to 80% of the way there, at least in terms of quality.
And I mean, Frank just mentioned earlier, which I think was a really good bullet point, is smash beers would be a good style's the wrong term. Smash beers would be a fun way to brew cheap beers, but get a lot of variety. And smash beers, basically, for those who don't know, is single malt and single hops. So basically, you would use one base grain and one hop. And because of that, you're not going to have, I can't tell you, like I had a recipe today that called for a half ounce of hops. What are you going to do with the other half? Yeah. Probably nothing, throw it away. So that throws your cost for your, batch of ingredients up versus if you're doing a smash beer and you're using all the same hops, odds are you're going to utilize them. If you grew your own hops, once again, that would be another cost-effective way to save money. I mean, you can brew when I was talking to the customer earlier about, people saving money in brewing, and he said the same, thing that I always say is basically, you don't save money brewing beer because we're into the hobby of it, and I tell people we do save money brewing beer if you don't factor the fact that, like me, I'm using something different every time I brew. So of course it's because it's a hobby for me, you can't necessarily look at just what's in your glass. Yeah. But ingredients wise, smash beers would be fantastic if you use your own homegrown hops. I mean, anything you do from scratch or you buy in bulk, I mean, anything you do like that, you're going to save money doing.
It's just when you go off the rails, like I typically do, I literally put mango into my mash when I brewed this past Monday. That's where you start to add up the cost, or I want to dry hop, or I want to do this, or I want to add extra flavors.
Right. But you're also describing a beer that would be more expensive if I went and bought it. That's also the point. I don't think you ever get more expensive when you home brew it. Meaning, if you're going to go get the same quality of beer and buy it already bottled, you're going to pay more regardless what style, how fancy or whatever.
But we've discussed it on the cast time and time again. The bottom line is, as us homebrewers, we're generally brewing craft quality beer for the price of the cheap stuff. Like I said, back to if you don't factor your equipment, you just, it's kind of like, if you go buy a Prius, you're going to save money on gas versus, if you drove a Bronco before it, but you still had to buy the Prius if the Bronco was already paid for, in the beginning. Yeah, you're saving money on fuel, but you're not saving money monthly because
you're paying more for the car and you're paying more insurance, everything else went up.
It's the same principle with brewing. It's kind of that, you can buy cheaper, which I have no problems with. Used it for a decade and got great results. Go plastic. I mean, plastic, we sell fermenters that are plastic. We sell everything we sell it, besides the brew pot, we sell a plastic version of it. It's going to be cheaper, but just no long-term, kind of like the car analogy, long-term, the plastic bucket's going to need to be replaced.
Yes.
Now, if in the now doesn't make a difference, but 20 years from now, you're like, I've been through 15 brew buckets. I could have just bought one stainless steel fermenter and been done. The downfall is if you brew for 1 year and never brew again, well, the expense of the hobby is obviously significantly more expensive.
But we talk about this off air too. Something in some cases we have discussed about getting younger and or newer people into the hobby of brewing.
Right.
And like it or not, one of those options to convince someone is that they can drink better beer cheaper. But I never hear that. When I watch or listen to other shows, they never talk much about price or how, hey, if you really are a young drinker, a 24, 25-year-old that wants to drink high-end quality craft beer, but he's still working at a job that doesn't allow him to do that. And getting into this hobby, to me, is a good thing, even if the only reason he starts into this hobby is because he wants to drink better beer cheaper.
Well, and I think that's where when and once again we've said on the cast quite a few times, me and you got started in the hobby at the same time, Mark, and at the time we weren't craft beer drinkers, so
we were trying to make Budweiser as cheap as we could.
So like I said, I don't think I count, and I especially don't count because we're and I think where me and you were very different is because I've seen it through the lens of the different climate changes our economy has had over the years of owning the business. Very, very, very few people come through this door looking to save money brewing beer. I mean, obviously, like I said, my price in comparison to my competitor's price is relevant, but it's not and I've always tried my very best to be as competitively priced as my, everyone else in this industry.
Mhm.
Sometimes because I don't have a choice, and just, I'm very aware of that. But like I said, no one's ever been like, hey, you're too expensive as a brew store. I've never gotten that feedback. Everyone's always said, brew store wise, you're very competitively priced brew store.
Yeah.
So if that not factoring that, no one's ever came here and said, hey, I want to brew I know we always use the analogy of Sierra Nevada. I want to brew a Sierra Nevada as cheap as humanly possible. I mean, the very simple answer to that is, if you brew a recipe that's similar to Sierra Nevada, it will be cheaper if you home brew it, if you don't factor equipment. And it's going to be cheaper if you all grain brew versus extract brew. I mean, those are the simplest answers. And honestly, like, the way we got started, Mark, really doesn't exist anymore. The industry has completely phased it out. Now, Mr. Beer is still around, but I remember we got started, those Coopers, pre-hopped kits, the Muntins pre-hopped kits. The list, those, I'm sure they're still around, but they don't exist here in the States, to my best knowledge.
No, they're more common overseas still.
Mangrove Jacks does them still. I think those are available here in the States. Most of those Coopers pre-hopped kits you'll see in places like Canada, where their alcohol is taxed to the gills.
Okay.
If you go to Canada, you'll probably spend just as much beer on the tax of the beer than you will the actual contents of the can, just because of their
their taxes.
I mean, cigarettes, everything is like that in Canada. But in the States, we sold beer here in the store. I mean, you just collected regular sales tax. Now, a lot, and even soda has tax, versus most beverages aren't, water and things like that aren't taxed. But, so you're paying sales tax. So we don't have that incremental, expense as far as alcohol goes.
Right.
So I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, I tell people all the time, like, the cheapest way is to drink beer at home. If you go to the bar, you're going to pay more money for the beer. So, but, brewing wise, like I said, I think it would just basically be, if you can convert from all grain to extract, try to keep your current equipment, try to keep your recipes more on the simple side.
How about
Don't
that extract to all grain, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Strike that, reverse it. Go from all extract to all grain if you can. Try to keep your recipes pretty basic. And honestly, like, I would try to lean you away from doing the pre-hop style kits, because they just don't turn out good. I mean, I don't have a nice way to say it. If you're brewing them and you enjoy them and you really are doing it to save money, my hat's off to you. But if you're I still
but turning out good is relevant, though, also, compared to what, again, they still will taste probably as good or better than the natty you just drank.
Well, my point is, for the convenience of me being able to go to the gas station and get essentially 4 beers for $1.25, you're going to invest way too much of your time to brew something maybe equivalent. You know what I mean?
Right.
With the pre-hopped cans.
Right.
I mean, you've had them, Chris. I don't care what anyone says. They have this weird bite to them. Agreed. That homebrew tang I've heard so many times. It comes from those pre-hopped cans. Yeah. Until you're using specialty grain, I mean, not even specialty grains. Until you're using fresh hops and good yeast, I mean, the beer just is dramatically reflected from just those two things.
Yeah, but to your point earlier, that's where not skimping on the actual ingredients, that's where that becomes an important factor. Where if you want to try and skimp on the recipe as a whole, and let's say, well, instead of going all out and saying, I'm going to brew this mango flavored blah blah blah, I'll just do something that's more simplistic, so that allows you to get the right quality ingredients, so you're not really being affected on the back end. You're not
Chris, based on what you just said, then let's say the recipe you just brewed, if you really realized, okay, I can't afford to brew it, but I still want to get as close as possible, what ingredient would you skimp on and go, probably it'll affect my taste a little bit, but not enough? What ingredient, or where would you skimp out first?
So I probably skimp out in three different spots. I added a couple of extra adjuncts, like to the grain bill itself. I'd probably remove a couple of those, because I was trying to hunt for not just the right like ABV, but also like trying to hit the right color for it, because I wanted to get like a more orangish color. I'd probably cut some of that out. The hops that I got for it, I got some I guess hops that you had like special order, a couple of them, didn't you? Probably switch that out.
What's the odds?
Right. I know, like me going off script and like doing something wild, like, you know me, But I would probably cut that out to have a more simplistic hop schedule as well. So I'd maybe only have maybe 1 to 2 ounces at about 5 minutes to flame out, and maybe do a small whirlpool, and maybe just a single ounce of dry hops as well. So instead of having, I think I've got a total 6 to 7 ounces of hops, maybe cut that in half. And then also the yeast as well. I mean, you could probably get by with something like a dry packet of yeast, but I went with that. I can never pronounce it right. Quebec.
Sure, we'll go with that.
We'll
today.
go with that. But just like there are different ways that you can cut out. And then also the fruit itself. I bought actual like fresh mangoes to go with this. You can get mango flavoring for probably like a third of the cost. So just like there are multiple ways that you can probably cut it down and get you most of the way there. But of course, since it was me, I decided to be extra because that's what I do.
Well, I mean, I think one of the big things while you were discussing that, I mean, just say we had Chris's recipe in here. I would say if you're looking to brew on a budget without completely changing the flavor of the beer, switching from liquid yeast strains to dry yeast strains is a good first start.
Yeah, I
because
agree.
generally
like
speaking,
right there.
you're looking at spending half the price on yeast just out of the gate if you go with a dry option versus a liquid option. And nowadays there are the dry options. I would almost say blindly tasting them, as long as you can get the variety that you're looking for. I'm not sure you could taste the difference. So, you know, using like what Frank mentioned, a US05 versus like, you know, Flagship by Imperial. I mean, Flagship by Imperial's $10.99. US05 is $3.99. I would be willing to bet you couldn't taste the difference if those two beers were side by side. And if you could, it would be so marginal you couldn't tell which one was which. Meaning, like, maybe you could taste a difference, but you couldn't go, oh, this one tastes shitty. That has to be the dry option.
Right.
So that would be recommendation number one. We already discussed, you know, switching from extract to all grain. Another one would be, you know, try to stay away from very aromatic beer styles, because those chew into a shit ton of hops without changing the overall IBUs or balance of the beer as far as the malt to hop profile.
Right.
So go with a cream ale, go with a
less hazies, more like lawnmower style beers,
or you're just more traditional pale ales.
Right. Yeah.
You know, a lot of like English style pale ales don't call for any dry hopping. They really don't call. They have like a 60-minute edition, like a 30-minute edition. That's really about it. They're just a more hoppy than, you know, your standard beer. And then the last thing was stay away from extremely high ABV beers or beers that call for a lot of specialty grains. Like if you're wanting to do
but
a very
let's go back to what
porter,
back to what you're drinking there, the Natty Daddy, the 80.
I can't drink anymore.
Okay, but it is would you say 8%?
What's
you
that?
know, but it's 8%. Right. So let's say Chris's recipe originally should come out at 4.7%. Let's say because of cost, if I'm going to go ahead and make it and I just want to kick up the alcohol, meaning all I want to do is maybe, you know, and I get it. Sometimes when you change the alcohol, it does change the taste.
Well, yeah,
but in my mind, just bumping up the alcohol so that I maybe don't have to drink as much, but I get some of the other pleasure from that beer. What would you do to just increase, you know, the alcohol volume? So yeah, I'm paying a little more, but I'm getting a little more kick out of a 12 ounces.
Well, yeah, that's where it's weird. Is like I can honestly say I don't drink for a buzz anymore. You know, and that's where, like I said, I might be a little bit biased, and I guess I will get to the point in just 1 second. You know, if you want to get drunk for as cheap as possible, look into getting into distilling, because you can get a distilling setup. And if you want to get drunk, or Frank also mentioned a very good suggestion of, you can boost it with a pound of just good old fashioned table sugar or corn sugar. That's a way to boost that ABV without changing the beer very much. You have to be careful when you add sugar. You are potentially going to turn it real appley. That's what happens when you get heavy-handed. Yeah, we've all been there. I think that's one of the big reasons why I never liked the PreHop Kits, is because it's like, add this 3.3 pound can of PreHop malt extract and then 7 pounds of corn sugar, you know, or dextrose, you know.
And then you go, what's another pound gonna do?
And you were drinking, you know, watered down malt liquor, basically. Which, like I said, don't get me wrong, malt liquor has drunk, but like I said, I look at it a little bit differently, because I still, as a home brewing store, and even just the way I drink these days, like I said, I very rarely pour beer down the drain, but if I don't like it, I'm not going to drink it. Maybe when I was in my early 20s and I was on a mission, I definitely would have found a way to just drink it and not bought it in the future and put it just down more quickly so it could get the job done.
Yeah.
But like I said, so it's, I guess the point I'm trying to make is I'm trying to steer you. Here's a way you can brew on a budget, but still make really good beer. Because at the end of the day, like home brewing, if you want to look at it of just getting drunk, like I said, look into getting distilling. And I don't mean that there aren't people distilling really good, flavorful spirits that are aging it and, you know, putting it on oak, but your white lightning, that's just sugar, yeast, done through a still is going to get the job done. Or add, you know, throw sugar into your brews. Jared's mentioned just brew a smash beer, probably do first. Yeah, we discussed that a little bit ago of doing that.
Yep.
You know, so like I said, my goal is still to get you as a home brew store owner, as I still want you getting good quality beer that you're proud to share with people, not just, you know, get you drunk. So my suggestion would be, like I said, try to pick beer styles that stay away from a lot of aromatic hops. Go with dry yeast options instead of liquid yeast options. Keep your recipe on the simple side, meaning like don't get too crazy. Now, like what Chris even said, you know, he bought fruit. You said you bought fruit for your beer, right?
Yep.
We sell fruit flavorings here. Once again, they're more on the candy side of flavoring.
Right.
But that's another thing. I guess that's one thing we're completely ignoring. Make a hard seltzer.
Yeah,
it don't get cheaper than that.
Right.
I mean, it don't get simpler.
What's that? Cheaper. What's a kit of seltzer now?
I think we sell ours for we sell one for $25, or you get 3 for $50.
Oh,
so I don't know what 50 divided by 3 is.
I don't know, 17.
I got a 28-year-old kid that's all he drinks now, seltzer. I can't
You're not
do
investing.
it.
You're not.
I can't do it.
You're investing, but that's what
I know.
That's where, like I said, I'm kind of battling you a little bit. It's because back to I don't like hard seltzer either. I've tried many of them. I've brewed them. It's just not my cup of tea. But if you're buying that at the store, you are paying way too much for convenience there. You know, I would argue like good quality craft beer from your store for the amount of time you. What I'm saying is
there's a lot more labor involved in the craft beer than there is in seltzer.
So much money making seltzer in comparison to store bought. And the thing about seltzer, which is fantastic, is it's very simple. I mean, another one, I guess we'll wrap it up here in a few minutes, but, if you're willing to just look at brewing on a budget, we always talk beer, hard cider, we have hard cider kits that turn out fantastic here. Very simple.
Good.
Don't require much equipment. Don't require, you know, that's a downfall to all grain brewing is now you're starting to get into the knowledge base, but a hard seltzer, mead, wine. I mean, I guess that would be in conclusion. The answer to the question would be don't brew beer.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
If you want to brew on a budget,
if alcohol is the important ingredient,
no, what I'm saying
there's
is
other options too.
If you're someone like me who I'm not necessarily a wine drinker, but I don't mind a glass of wine from time to time.
Sure. But
for me, like I joke to people like, and I guess that's where I become a little bit of a beer snob over the years. I joke to people all the time. I can't tell a difference between a $200 bottle of wine and Boone's Farm. You know, and I like wine on the sweet side because I'm not I don't like all the tannins and all the verbiage I don't know with wine. So I guess that would be probably, in a nutshell, the answer to the whole topic would be look into brewing something outside of beer.
Which you guys carry. You carry all those other kits.
And it's back to if you've already got the equipment for beer, make a mead. Make a seltzer, make a all the different things that we've discussed.
It's been a long time. My mead might have been the only thing I threw out. I've never thrown out a beer. My mead, I might have screwed it up. I couldn't drink it.
The mead that we made
I couldn't do it.
Once again, I think we added.
I know we have to. We do have to end, but to me, there's one more important thing. We've gotten you this point, and I think the wine kind of gets us there a little bit. The last thing would be the final product and the bottling. How do we get around the cheapest way to bottle versus kegging versus whatever? Just a quick synopsis of what our options are and or how we could save money.
Well, I would say, and I urge everyone, because, for me, like back to, I value my time as well. And I find most people get out of the brewing hobby because they run out of time. Life happens. Kids get involved. Kids get involved in athletics and school. It's harder to chisel the time out for money. So unfortunately for the topic, I feel like investing some money to make your life easier will keep you with it. So, back to, if you are buying store-bought beer, save your bottles. Save all your flip-top bottles. That's a great way to save money.
Right. Almost all your craft beers.
I know a lot of, there's always, generally speaking, a lot of good deals on like Craigslist and Facebook Market and things of that nature, where you can usually get either like a used CO2 cylinder that we can fill up here in the store for you, or a kegerator that somebody doesn't use anymore, just secondhand type things like that. That would be, but I would still urge people, if you can, get into kegging. Like I said, unfortunately, it's not good in the budget department up front, but it's back to, I know unanimously, I bet you 50% of people who bottle beer don't brew beer anymore. I bet you that statistic is much higher for people who keg still brew beer, just because of the convenience factor.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Absolutely.
So I'm, like I said, it's weird. We're talking about saving money, but I'm trying to get you to invest more money up front. But the nice thing about kegging is you'll never have to fidget with bottles ever again.
Right.
So,
yeah, unfortunately, most people doing their first batch of beer, or wine or anything like that, they don't want to invest that. That's the problem.
I'm true. I am using the same used Cornelius keg that my friend gave me when I started home brewing like 13 years ago. I mean, truly, other than replacing the seals like twice. So back to stainless and longevity. I mean, they last forever. I mean, if you take care of them,
I've got 4 up in my attic.
And I'm betting if you get them out, we clean them up and sanitize them, they'd work like the day they work like the last time you used
them. That's why I don't brew like I don't brew anymore. I got to start. I keep going. I'm going to start again.
That's where the topic is kind of shifted over the years. Is it used to be, 2-3 years ago, our conversation was like, how do we kill the time being home?
Right now,
now the conversation is how do we help you save money, but recognize you don't have a bunch of time on your hands now.
Yeah, but the problem is money. That kind of goes hand in hand. When gas gets up to $5 a gallon, people aren't doing as much, so now they are home more. Meaning now is the time to kind of get in it. You save a little money, and because you can't take that 1,000-mile trip right now on vacation, you might stay at home this year for vacation. Well, that week would be a good week. A staycation, I think they call it. Well, you could brew beer that week, your first batch of beer or something like that. And I mean, you save money 2 ways.
I guess that would be another way. Network yourself with different people on Facebook and groups and stuff, and find people who are interested in opening a brewery one day. They love to share their beer, so you can get all the free beer. Join a home brew club. You can get
that way too.
I mean,
come to brew competitions. They got plenty of.
Come
beer
to my house. I'll give you all the alcohol you want to drink for free.
All right, we gotta end here. No one needs to find me. Chris and Joey, tell us what's going on, where they can find you, what information.
I mean, if you want to actually physically find us, we might be available down near the Riverscape area this Saturday for the beer 5K that's going on in downtown Dayton. So if you want to come and hang out for a little bit, I'll be running in the 5K. Hopefully, I'm not going to pass out shortly thereafter, because it is going to be at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But if you want to come down, maybe swap some stories or recipes or whatever, Joey and I will be down there, just kind of hanging out until last call. I think it's 8 o'clock or something like that.
I was going to say, I'll just be running my mouth, not physically, because
I'll be attempting to do both at some point. But yeah, if not, you can find me on Twitter at Chris Allen FFWX, doing football stuff, fantasy football work as well. Between that and brewing, and we've got the competition coming up. It's only a couple months away. Think about that.
Jeez,
we've got Beer and Sweat coming up in mid to late August.
Yep.
So it's
about don't forget to find us. There's also the 32-bit.
Yes, sir. 32-bit. Number of other shows that are going on there. So if you're into pop culture, football,
I've seen that they've been posting our show here. So that's our show's there too.
Yep.
Joey, store hours. Anything we need to know about the location?
Open 7 days a week. Call us anytime. Email us. Like I said, if brewing on a budget is of interest to you, or the opposite, or anywhere in between, I can switch gears and try to cater you to what part of the hobby you enjoy or what you're looking after. So just come on in, have a good conversation with us. We'll get you hooked up whichever direction you want to go with the hobby.
All right. Hey, say goodnight then.